You're listening to Big World Network.
Just Kill Me, Season 2, Episode 10, Too Many Secrets. Written by Wendy Herman. Read by Wendy Herman. I sat down slowly in Brain's chair. I inhaled as deeply as I could and then blew it out through my mouth. I stared at the screen. She had left it on the search page. My fingers hovered over the keys. I knew what to type, but I was apprehensive. Nervous, even. Why was Brain helping me? As far as I knew, she had never spoken more than 4 words to anyone else in the building. So why me? I decided to take advantage of the opportunity before me and stop questioning it. It was what it was, and it was all I had at the moment. I gave my neck a quick snap right, then left, the popcorn sound filling me with satisfaction. Then I braced myself and typed Freya McKenna in the search box. The same blank screen I had seen 7, now 8 times stared back at me. I frowned. What was it Brain had said? Think outside the box? Not something I was inherently good at, but nearly 20 years in the FBI had taught me some tricks. Question: what do you see? Answer: a file for an FBI agent. Question: is there anything unusual about it? Answer: yes. Question: what? Answer: it's void of information, save name and birth date. Question: is it really? I grunted with frustration, as I always did when I was forced to run through the mental exercise I had learned at a training seminar years ago, one that claimed it could teach anyone how to see every clue in a case, not just the obvious ones. It was meant to heighten one's awareness of his or her surroundings, but after 2 weeks of close your eyes and visualize the scene, my end-of-training critique form made one recommendation: lose the 2-week waste of time, and just email the mental exercise questions to every agent in the Bureau. It was tedious, but the only thing that I had taken away from the seminar that had actually worked for me a time or two. I took a breath and focused. Where was I? Question: is it really void of information? Answer: yes. Question: what do you see when you focus only on the background? Wait. That one was for when I was at an actual physical crime scene and was having trouble finding any leads. Jokingly, I thought to myself, I see a blue pixelated screen. I chuckled at my funny, but then gasped with an epiphany. What if I did consider the question in a more literal sense? I made my eyes focus on the background of the screen, outside the boxes. Outside the boxes. Outside the boxes. That's what Brain had said. Not think outside the box, but look outside the boxes. Being literal was working for me. I decided to make it my theme for the day. I scanned the page on the screen, focusing on the blue space around the mostly empty text boxes. I started in the top left corner and worked my way across and down. As I approached the bottom right corner, my heart sank. There was nothing there. Just to torture myself, I worked my way back up, ending at the top left corner. Nothing. Okay, Brain, what am I missing? In a simpler world, Brain would have invited me over to her all-knowing terminal and shown me everything I had been so desperately searching for, all the time giving me her dazzling, rarely seen smile. Of course, in a simpler world, I wouldn't be here, secretly digging through the FBI database looking for 20-year-old information that I had nowhere near the clearance to access through proper channels. In a simpler world, I would have married Freya 20 years ago, and my biggest problem would be what to get her for our anniversary. Ouch. I let the sudden wave of sadness wash over me. Sometimes it was easier than trying to suppress it. And maybe it was one of the things motivating me to keep going. As it passed, I realized the emotion left behind was anger. Anger at the FBI for having so many secrets. Anger at the fact that one of the oldest and biggest seemed to involve Freya and me. Anger at the way everything had to be so covert and wrapped in a million layers of encrypted code. I had a fleeting thought and checked my watch. 12:22. Brain had been gone just over 20 minutes. I assumed she took an hour for lunch, like most people, but then again, she was not most people. I couldn't assume anything. I needed to get the information and get the hell out of there. I thought about the theme of my day. Maybe I still wasn't taking Brain's words as literally as I should be. Look outside the boxes. Look outside the boxes. Look outside. Look. 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 I had noticed when I'd first sat down that Brain's cursor was an eye, wide open, lidless, and staring at me with an intensity that almost said, "It's about time, dummy." I was just now realizing the importance of that all-seeing symbol. I had been looking at the page with the wrong eyes, or eye. I grabbed the mouse with renewed hope and placed the eye in the top left corner of the screen. Slowly, I dragged it across the top, one imaginary row after another, watching closely for any change to the eye, anything at all. I was nearing the bottom right corner, and my mouse hand was starting to sweat. I slowed the cursor, staring back at it with determination. I would not leave here as clueless as when I'd arrived. Suddenly, the eye winked at me. I stopped the mouse and froze. Maybe I had imagined it. The soulless eye scrutinized me, giving no indication that it had closed its invisible lid for a microsecond. I cautiously lowered my right hand back down to rest on the mouse ever so gently. A few seconds later, I moved the cursor to the right, slowly, about an inch. Nothing. I reversed direction and willed myself not to blink as I bore a hole through the eyeball on the screen. Wink. I gasped quietly. The eye looked at me innocently, denying it had just flirted with me a second time. I slid the mouse just a tiny bit, an infinitesimal distance. Time slowed, or seemed to, or I was having a stroke. The eye closed. I lifted my hand as quickly as I could and held my breath. The eye was still closed. I allowed myself to exhale and lean back in the chair, running my hands through my hair with relief. I imagined this must be how a brain surgeon felt after successfully removing a tumor. Thank God the only fine motor skill I had to worry about mastering was pulling a trigger. I enjoyed my victory for a moment, then sat up and cracked my knuckles. I slowly placed my index fingertip on the button of the mouse. Fingertip only. Click. The screen cycled through what seemed like 1,000,000 pages, as if the computer was uploading the entire central database while I watched. It reminded me of the opening song for The Big Bang Theory. Then it stopped. The screen I was now looking at contained only 3 icons: heaven, hell, purgatory. I didn't know what I'd expected, but that couldn't have been farther from it. I stared at the 3 choices for a moment, contemplating. Which one first? I was a fan of getting the bad out of the way first, so I clicked on the little red devil. The page materialized and I frowned. At first glance, it was a list of numbers, all 8 digits long, filling the screen in 8 columns. Numbers were not my thing, and I suddenly felt like I may be way out of my league. I scrubbed my face with my left hand and tried to think. I looked back at the endless sea of numbers. Okay, I can do this. What do all the numbers have in common? The first thing I noticed was that every single number on the page started with a 19. Suddenly, the 8-digit numbers that had looked like some sort of encrypted computer language at first seemed very familiar. They were dates. Year, month, day. That was easy. I smiled. A small victory is still a victory. I started scanning each number and realized my victory was short-lived, however. None of the dates were ringing a bell. They were listed chronologically, and the first and oldest number on the screen was 1912-08-22. 100 years ago. I clicked on it. It was a personnel file for someone named Clyde Conway. I scrutinized the information in front of me and found that Clyde's birth date was August 22nd, 1912. Then I saw a box labeled nickname. Clyde Conway's nickname was Casanova. Casanova Conway did ring a bell. He was a legendary agent who was the first documented member of the FBI to turn to the dark side. He was caught working for the Nazis during World War II and was summarily executed for treason. His natural charm and charisma had garnered him the name Casanova, but it proved to be doubly true when it was discovered he had a wife and kids in D.C. and a wife and kids in Germany. I paged back and clicked on the next file. This one also belonged to an agent I'd heard of because he had also been charged with treason. The next file, and the next file. All agents who had been caught, convicted, and executed for betraying their country. I didn't need to look any further to realize I had indeed entered hell, the place in the FBI database where agents who'd turned bad rotted for eternity. Because of my nature to always second-guess myself, I did a quick glance to make sure Freya's birth date was not listed, and then moved on. I paged back to the 3 icons and clicked on Heaven, a small ethereal angel complete with gown, wings, and halo. Again, 8 columns of 8-digit numbers stared at me. I noticed at the bottom of the screen that there were in fact 31 pages of the same. Hell had only had 8 pages. I guess that was a good sign. If hell was agents who'd gone bad, then what the heck would heaven be? I clicked on the first file, 1878-12-24. I didn't recognize the name, but this guy was no double agent. He had earned so many awards, 4 of them posthumously, that there was a link to an extra page just to list them all. As I went back to the file list, I had to go to page 28 just to get to the 1970s. Freya's birth date was not listed. Purgatory it is. I clicked on the picture of the clock face with zeros where the numbers 1 through 12 should have been. The place with no time. I quickly paged forward until I saw 1970 as the first 4 numbers of the file names, and slowed down, scanning for 1972-0701. It wasn't there. Shit. Now what? I was about to abandon the whole thing when something struck me. I remembered the CAT scans that had briefly been in my possession, and the enlistment form I had found at the top of the pile that was Freya's secret file. The form had said Freya's birthdate was 1971, not 1972. The CAT scans had also had a file number of 1971-0701. That number was on the list. I clicked on it, and there it was. Freya McKenna's file, and it was teeming with information. My heart skipped a beat. I looked at my watch and realized I didn't have time to read it. My hour was almost up. I pulled the tiny flash drive I bought that morning from my pocket, plugged it into the side of Brain's computer, and smiled. There might be hope for me yet.
You're listening to Big World Network.